While this podcast is designed for those who feel a call to ministry, it's a dire necessity that we realize one very important truth. We may all be called, but we're also all different. And sadly, too many people fall into the trap of thinking that everybody in ministry is pretty much the same. I'm Bishop Douglas White. We're going to take a fresh look at an old problem and we're going to apply some solid answers today on the Ministry Matters podcast. Hello, everybody. This is Bishop Douglas White, and you're listening to the Ministry Matters podcast. This is a space designed for callings to be clarified, character to be cultivated, commitments to be deepened. God bless you. Let's talk about matters that pertain to your ministry. Every one of us called to a pulpit ministry have been handpicked by God to fulfill a specific role in the purpose of God. God may send you where He doesn't send me, and God may direct my influence to a group that your influence would be ineffective in. God may position you in a situation that I would struggle to remotely benefit God's purpose. God may invest my ministry in a realm that your ministry would be unsure and unstable in. Let's face it, we don't like to talk about it, but reality is we're all different. And if that weren't true, then explain to me why I have such high respect and regard for those that can minister to children. Let me be transparent here for just a few minutes today. I have an incredible respect and regard for people like Lloyd Squires and some of these children's ministries. They're absolutely iconic to me because I can quickly tell you that children's ministry is completely out of my element. I can support it, I can admire it, I can help facilitate it, I can help finance it, but I am completely out of my element trying to do it. With my kind of ministry, every child in the building would be on Ritalin by the time my meeting was over. Now, mind you, it's not that I don't believe in it. I believe wholeheartedly in the need for children's ministry, but I just know that I myself am not cut out for that kind of ministry. So it's with that in mind that I admonish every ministry that I help to cultivate to realize that while some ministries may have similarities, every ministry is different, and every ministry is called to a particular purpose in God's plan. I think the Bible lays out very clearly that God calls all of us, He knew us before we were born, and He calls us to a particular purpose in His plan. And it's that fact alone that should scream into the hearts of every ministry, reiterating the importance of letting God shape your ministry into the ministry that He designed and not just the ministry you desired. I want to say that again. That should scream into the heart of every ministry, reiterating the importance of letting God shape your ministry into the ministry He designed and not the ministry that you desired. I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about the different aspects of shaping your ministry. I have a strong opinion that unlocking the identity of your particular ministry is a lot like a combination lock. It requires a specific code to open it up and reveal the potential of what's on the inside. Now, I'm going to use this podcast for the next little bit to share some important facets of that particular code to help you unlock the identity and the potential of your particular ministry. And again, we may all be called into the ministry, but it's very, very important. In fact, I think it is crucially important that we understand the basic reality that we're not all called to be identical. Yes, we're all called to have passion. Yes, we're all called to a life of sacrifice. Yes, we're all called to a life of commitment. But you would do yourself a tremendous favor by allowing God the latitude to stretch, to unfold, and to expose your particular ministry without trying to limit God to only developing those areas you want your ministry to go into. The first step is very simple to me. You need, if you have a legitimate pulpit ministry and you want to shape your ministry the way God desires for it to be shaped, you need to balance your input. Let me explain that for you. I suspect everybody who feels called to preach also feels a great affinity for listening to preaching. Whether we want to admit it or not, there's something inside of us. Maybe it's just carnality at times. We want to know what works. We want to know what causes it to flow good. Our passion wants to know what style of preaching seems to get a response. We want to know what kind of preaching stirs the crowd up because we ourselves want to be effective. That is completely natural, in my opinion. And I advise all of my developing preachers to fill their world up with preaching from various different media sources. I have what my developing ministries have come to call the meat locker, and it consists of over 4,500 messages. Today, it's probably much, much more than that. But I've got around 4,500 cassettes and CDs, and that's not counting the MP3s and the WAV files and such things that technology has handed us. But these are different messages that have ministered to me. They've blessed me. They've shook my spirit over the years of living for God. And soon on this podcast, I think we're going to deal with things like our favorite preachers and acquiring resources that inspire us. But today, while I press the importance of studying preaching and gleaning from preaching and keeping your spirit inspired by preaching to all of my developing ministers, you may find it interesting that I do not allow my developing ministries to only listen to me or my son. My son, Pastor Benjamin White, is absolutely a phenomenal preacher. Mind you, I've preached for years, and my son and their pastor is an incredible preacher, but I don't allow them to just listen to us. Even more, I don't allow them to listen to any one style of preaching if I can help it. The reason for that is because I want them to have a balanced input. I believe in the importance of having a balanced input because our common misconception of ministry is that we're all supposed to somehow be similar. I want to help that misconception today by telling you that among the ministry that God has allowed me to serve as bishop, there are some absolutely dynamic evangelists. I've got some incredible pastors under my ministry. I've got a few of the greatest Bible teachers you'll ever hear in your life. I've got a children's ministry that's highly effective, youth ministers that are balanced, solid on doctrine, sold out, they're passionate. I've got missionary minded people who are naturally wired to have a missionary mindset. What I'm saying is that they're simply different in so many different aspects. I have evangelists that may well someday be a pastor, but today they are extremely effective in the evangelistic ministry that God's called them to. I've got some in pastoral ministry that would never survive as an evangelist because their ministry is simply not geared towards evangelism. I've got some who are missions minded that would probably struggle trying to do certain things in this Western mindset we live in, but they can be extremely effective in other cultures. It's because of that that I intentionally tell them not to listen to just myself or just my son. Uh, Additionally, I don't let them listen to one particular preacher because, frankly, one particular style is not going to benefit them if their own God called ministry is not remotely aligned with that particular kind of delivery. That's the very reason I never let them listen to just one type of preacher. It can channel their minds to think that to be a legitimate preacher, their ministry has to have a delivery just like the particular style of another ministry that they enjoy. Absolutely nothing could be further from the truth. So, the first step in unlocking your particular ministry's identity is to balance your input to the place that you're well aware there are other types of viable, valuable ministries beyond that one particular style that you think you'd like to be. Now, mind you, I'm not trying to kill your dreams. I'm not trying to stifle your passion. But what I am trying to do is to tell you that it's a lot easier to let God shape your own ministry when you balance your input with a steady flow of preachers and teachers that help you to realize valid ministries can have different styles of delivery. Don't lock yourself in to one particular style of ministry. And the best way I know to do that is to balance your input. Now, the second step to unlocking your particular ministry's identity is simply for you to release all of your assumptions. It is completely easy, altogether too common, in fact, for people to feel a call to ministry and immediately be deluged with these assumptions that your ministry is going to be identical to somebody else's ministry. That, in all sincerity, can be a good thing that helps you or a horrendously bad thing that damages you. Again, any valid ministry that God has actually called is driven by a passion to do everything in your power to be effective. If you have no desire to be effective, hush, get out of the pulpit. I have people say, I don't want to go to another man's pulpit and have an effect on their congregation. Then what in the name of God are you doing in somebody's pulpit if you don't want to? You want to be effective. You just want to be effective in the right way. Because of what we've been exposed to, the preachers we've heard, the conversations we've heard, the things we've been exposed to, that effectiveness can be defined by what we've seen others do and how we've seen others progress in ministry. Even so, you've got to remember that all ministries don't take identical paths to validity in the eyes of others. It's those assumptions we spoke of earlier that creates the conundrum that many developing ministries have to overcome. Do yourself a favor early on in the shaping of your ministry and determine that you're going to release all of your assumptions and simply walk towards the will of God, regardless of the fact that it may not look like a peer's pathway to a valid ministry. I had a young man uh, who was increasingly and very solidly charting out his course of his calling from God, that suddenly got his eyes on some other ministries and decided that to be a valid ministry, he had to be like a few others that he had seen through time. To compound that confusion, he had actually preached out on a few different occasions. I think it was maybe one night in each of those places, and his passion, albeit it was sometimes passion without wisdom, it convinced him that preaching out somewhere every night, whew, that'd be a wonderful thing. For that reason, he come to me and uh, he let me know that he was going to quit his job. He was going to sell everything he got, buy him a trailer, and start evangelizing. Now, mind you, he had only preached anywhere a handful of times, but while he was full of potential, he was not full of wisdom, and he simply could not see the terrible price that he would have to pay if he quit his good, stable job and those doors to evangelize didn't open up the way he was convinced they were going to open up. He told me, Brother White, God's going to open the door. I'm going to travel more than you are. You'll be able to do that and pastor too. But I got a feeling I'm going to be so busy that I'm not going to be able to do this, that, and the other. And I was already looking for an exit strategy to get out of the ministries he was involved in our church. Uh, I spent an extreme amount of time trying to tell him that quitting his job would be the absolutely worst thing that he could do. Now, I need everybody on this podcast to be aware. It's not that I didn't believe in his ministry. In fact, I did then, and to this day, I still believe in his ministry. But I simply believed that he was anything but an evangelist. Up to that point, he was well accepted by others in our church. He was regarded by ministries in our area. His ministry was solid, his thoughts were good. The only problem with his desire to evangelize is that neither his delivery, his demeanor, or his personality were remotely resembling that of somebody that God had called to evangelize. I know a little bit about ministries. I evangelized 8 years, pastored for a while in Ohio, evangelized again. I've been 38 years in the city of Silsbee, Texas. I know ministries. I've developed ministries. I've been around ministries. Nothing about this young man, though his heart was purely intentioned, resembled somebody that was called of God to evangelize. And when I finally convinced him not to quit his job, mainly because he had a wife and kids that probably wanted to eat, I made a deal with him. I was never going to let him call other preachers and attempt to push doors open. Perhaps that's another podcast, but I am absolutely adamant. I do not allow my preachers to call other preachers and try to push doors open. But I made an agreement with him. I'm not going to let him call other preachers, but if any doors would open up for his ministry, I was going to allow him to go simply to see if his ministry would even develop into that area of evangelism. Not one door opened up for this young man. Not one door. Other pastors recognized what I'd already recognized. He had a legitimate ministry. He could be very effective in certain areas, but he was in no way called to be an evangelist. And yes, I'll be honest with you, it crushed him when those doors didn't open. But something else very important happened during that time. His assumptions didn't come to pass, and he found himself being bludgeoned by those assumptions into feeling like he had become a failure. His ministry suffered, his family suffered, his response to God suffered, even his willingness to be used on a local level suffered, all because he was driven by assumptions until finally, somewhere along the line, he accepted the fact that his ministry was never called into evangelism. And when he came to that realization, all of a sudden, supernaturally, his ministry began to take shape, and eventually he went on to be a very effective pastor of a solid congregation of people. Oh, yeah, through time, he's thanked me over and over for not letting him quit his job. And I, on the other hand, have thanked God over and over for giving me the wisdom to lead this precious, precious man and his family through a season where he was almost derailed by those assumptions.